It is Friday, February 21st. Welcome back to Damon Bruce Plus. We're brought to you, as always, by Ike Sandwiches. Today's live stream being powered by BetUS. And we are not just thinking quietly to ourselves. We are thinking out loud with our good friend Sam Betesh of Thinking Out Loud, along with Andrew Siciliano. They've got their YouTube page. Sammy and I have been friends forever. He is the veteran of many a radio war, and it is good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Oh, Damon, it is so good to be here. Yes, Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam is where we exist there. Also at Siciliano Show. Thank you so much. When we team up like this, Damon, it just reminds me of such special days. We teamed up a lot in San Francisco, both on the radio and off. And it's a glorious time. It's not necessarily a glorious time in sports, but we are going to explain why, yes, indeed, it is.
We're going to get through it, baby, and we're almost through it. We can lay our burden down. That is the slowest sports week of the year. It usually starts around Valentine's Day. It is the NBA, NHL All-Star break sort of overlapping with each other. There is nothing to put on but college basketball at night. We're nearly through it. The hardest part of the sports calendar to get through. We're nearly through it. Spring training gets going this weekend, Sammy, on Sunday. We got
games. We already had a game, right? Your Cubbies, right? We already had a game.
Was that official? Or was it a split squatter?
It was official? But Dodger, it involved the World Series champs. It kind of felt official,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The Dodgers Cubs.
Combine next week in Indianapolis.
Very real, by the way.
We got our final third of the NBA season coming at us, and that should be very interesting. We got mock draft season, which will absolutely wear out its welcome before it's over and done with. But I'm looking forward to mock draft season, Sam. I really am.
I love a good mock draft. And the reason is because so often just watching how your team changes with what the priority is amongst the mock drafts is so hilarious. But I will say that, you know what? People are really good at these. I mean, in regards to kind of nailing top tens, I will say the industry has gotten very good at this. And I don't know if it's just the information is accessible or if people are just that inside now, but I feel like it's a good business. Whoever the people that are doing that are doing a good job. And have you ever seen the Schrager mock where he goes through every round? The Peter Schrager mock draft for every single pick is impressive, no matter how much he gets right or not. That just to simply list that many college football players is impressive.
Right. No, it's an incredible amount of work. If you're going to go through like a 7-round mock for every single NFL team, it's clearly a labor of love. And the NFL Network should have picked up your Super Bowl tab. I saw Peter Schrager say, what, dude, I had to pay my own way? That literally sounds like me taking John Goulet to a Super Bowl in Arizona the year before it arrived in the Bay Area, because I wanted us to be ready for Bay Area Super Bowl, and I take Goulet to Arizona with me on my own dime, and then a few months later he leaves for Colin Cowherd. I was like, son of a bitch.
I remember that phone call when you said, hey, I got a buddy coming out there, but I don't know how I feel about him anymore because he is leaving me to go hang out. And at the time, you didn't even necessarily know, because it wasn't really out yet, I was going to be working with Colin. You didn't even necessarily know that part. It was such a hilarious phone call that we had. It was, oh, wow. Yeah, no, Goulet and I both of your former guys are going to be hanging with Colin. That's what a kick in the balls.
It's good to see everyone around me make it and me just stall out in the Bay.
Damon, you are crushing life.
Anyways, man, it's great to see you. Our friend Sam Betesh is here. We got a lot to kind of get into, kick around, and talk about with no real true must go in this direction. Here is your A block topic. So we're just kind of welcome to a Friday show. That's how this one is rolling today. As always, Sammy, as you know, we got to thank those who make it all possible. And we start with the man with the plan right there, Ike of Ike Sandwiches. I was down in Burlingame. I picked up a Jamie Sirewich just yesterday from Ike's delicious sandwich. My guy has a sandwich with your name on it waiting for you. And literally there's one with my name on it waiting for you. Go and get a Damon Bruce. Eat a delicious sandwich at Ike's. And if you're not around in Ike's, oh my God, it might be time to move, or hopefully he'll be opening a store near you soon. Our friends at the Dubliner, West Portal, is a great place to go get a Guinness. West Portal, sneaky, awesome neighborhood in San Francisco. Locals only, no tech bros, no tourists, no douchebags, just the locals hang out in West Portal, and we'll see you hopefully at Dubliner West Portal. And like we said, Sammy, we're being brought to you by BetUS today. 150% sign-up bonus for your NBA, your NHL, your upcoming NFL draft action. Oh, yeah, it's all there on BetUS. Use promo code YouTube150 when you sign up for 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your very first deposit. And that, Sammy, is how you pay the bills. You got any bills to pay today?
Not right now, but can we talk about paying bills and paying out in regards to, especially to BetUS? So
Yes.
my father, the great Raymond Betesh, who you've hung out with in San Francisco for sure. So
I have. This man said, you know what? I want to lay 7.5 because Eagles are going big.
How, I mean, it is such a, it is it now, you know, you say it now and it feels a little less maybe shocking, but just try to turn back the clock to the Friday before the Super Bowl and what everybody was really thinking was going to happen between the Chiefs and the Eagles. And my dad comes over and he says, Sammy, the Eagles are going to win big. And my dad's got this great knack for spotting these things once in a while. You know, someone will come up to bat in a baseball game and he'll say, he's going deep. And it's not like he says it for every batter. And I said, finally, Dad, instead
There's
of just
value in the proclamation because it's rare.
Yes. And what I said is, Dad, you never lay money on these things. I said, why don't we do this? You think they're going to win big? He says 7.5. I said, that's it. We're getting the line. We're getting the line. We're making it happen. I showed you the ticket. He laid it, the -7.5. And think about a bet on the Eagles -7.5 in a Super Bowl against the Chiefs that you never had to sweat for a second.
Not a minute. Not a minute. That was a feet on the ottoman. It is in the barn early level bet. You had to feel really good about that. And look, how often does a son get to be proud of his father? Right.
What a moment. What a moment. What a moment. What a moment. And again, I was teaching him sort of how to do it, right? I was taking his training wheels off, and yet he spun the bike right around me. It's really,
I love it. I love it. So look, like I said, we're finally getting through the dead period, and it all fires back up on Monday. But what a pleasant surprise that the hero who rode in on a white horse out of nowhere to rescue us was exhibition hockey. Who would have ever thought, Sam? The Four Nations thing was awesome. It was awesome hockey, eliminating the concepts of terrorists and provoking allies, but you add that on top of it, and holy shit, we got a microwaved out of nowhere delicious meal that I don't think anybody was expecting to be that much fun.
Nobody saw it, and most people didn't even know. I'm a huge hockey fan, and so are you. We've been to many a Sharks game in our day. I didn't even have it on my radar last Saturday night, of course, until all of social media, all of my friends, my text messages blowing up. Are you watching this game? Dropping the gloves for 3 out of 4 faceoffs to start a game. That got everybody, that's how you wet the beak on a game for a tournament that never existed before this, that none of us even understood really what it was and didn't care. Canada, US, we're going to show up. And then that ends up as the championship game for Thursday. As you said, it was delicious. And not only that, it came to the table beautifully to end up in overtime the way that it did.
Oh, you know, we eat with our eyes, okay? We eat with our eyes. So plate presentation matters. And it was awesome. I mean, it was really, really good. And there was, like I said, there was, you know, people are now like, what will this do for hockey? Is this going to give hockey a bounce going forward? Unfortunately, the answer there is probably no, because this was absolutely mixed in with a political climate that, you know, again, when politics and football hit, like people get angry at it and they walk away from it. They're like, I don't like this mixture at all. When politics and baseball hit, now you got people are really pissed off because that's a great American pastime. And Gabe Kapler, get off your fucking knee, you performative douchebag. We see what you're doing.
My guy, Gabe.
Your guy, Gabe. When politics and hockey mix together, everyone's like, yeah, let's go. And I don't know why. I don't know why we reserve politics and hockey mixing. But boy, when it does, it works, Sammy. There's no denying it.
It is gorgeous to watch, draped in the flag, watching the game. And if, for those that missed it, I'm sure it's all over social media, but the intermission between the third period and overtime, the mashup of the speech Herb Brooks's speech from the movie. Now this is from the movie Miracle. Right. So this was actually, this was not actually Herb's. So it was Russell's version of Herb Brooks' speech mixed in, spliced in what was the U.S. locker room. That was excellent television. That was beautifully done. That was tremendous production, and it got everybody tingling with this idea that USA could take out another nation. Now, I will say I'm conflicted about one thing, and follow me on this, D. As a hockey fan, as a true hockey fan, which both of us, as we mentioned, are, I'm so used to rooting for amazing Canadian players, right? I mean, certainly on the Flyers through the years. In other words, through the years, through being an NHL fan of any team that you choose, your best player, how often is your best player Canadian? Most of the time, most years you're watching. So in a Canada-US game, so many of the players that I have been on my feet cheering for over the years are actually playing for Canada just as much as they are likely to have played for US. So it's tough to decipher. I mean, look, USA, Russia, right? I mean, Soviet Union, we're going to get fired up for it. If you had Finland or Sweden in there, I'd have no problem seriously saying, okay, I'm planting my flag USA. The Canada thing is a tough gray area for me as a huge hockey fan because so many of those players I'm used to rooting for all the time.
Well, and here's the thing. Whoever roots against Canada in anything.
And because they're never right. They're never the bully. They're never the favorite, right? I mean, Canada's the little engine that could. And here they are in a tournament where they actually are the favorite. It's hard not to love Connor McDavid in the slot, ripping it upper V. The only tear that rolls down my cheek is Austin Matthews had this game won in overtime. Binnington made a glove save in the upper corner.
A glove save and a beauty.
And a beauty. And that, I mean, to have seen Austin Matthews with sort of the way the Maple Leafs have gotten close and not done it so many times in our lifetime, it would have been quite a moment for Matthews to stamp himself to Americans, because I don't know that because he plays for a Canadian team, Austin Matthews, I think that was really a connection that a lot of people now made. Oh, Austin Matthews can be our guy. It's, he's Toronto. He's a Maple Leaf. He feels Canadian. And to see him with the gold on his stick in that game that would have been quite a moment.
He feels Canadian.
He does. Right?
I mean, I don't know if he is. But he feels Canadian. By the way, again, this is probably going way too inside baseball. And look at it this way: if we had a program director, they'd be shitting their pants right now because we opened with hockey.
The red phone would
never
be
good, never good.
No.
I'm going to keep it a never good topic just for a minute there. Did you see that Mike Lang passed away? The legendary broadcaster of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Man, Mike Lang has been doing Penguins games since they invented hockey pucks.
Mike Lang is one of those cherished voices, and when you hear him, it's almost like the temperature in the room wherever you are drops 15 degrees because he puts you in the arena. Mike Lang, you just feel like you are sitting. You can now see the ice when you hear Mike Lang's voice. And even though many of Mike Lang's most excited calls have been crushing moments for the Flyers on my end, I have to appreciate how incredible he has been and what he has meant to a community, to a franchise that also matters to the league. I mean, the history of the league. I mean, when you're talking Crosby and Lemieux and Yager and what that franchise has done, Mike Lang has seen it all.
Coffee, baby.
Paul Coffey. Tom Barrasso. I mean, let's go. I mean,
You ready? You ready to go? You ready to go down the memory lane? No, okay. You know what? We do want people to actually watch the video. So, by the way, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you're liking and subscribing across both channels, not only right here on the Plus, but over on Thinking Out Loud as well. Yes. Like and subscribe. Again, I had John Lund on with me yesterday. And the way I see it, Tom Tolbert is starting his YouTube channel in earnest on Monday. And as far as I'm concerned, we're all stray dogs. And stray dogs on their own might get in a little bit of trouble. If we put a pack together, if we're all a pack of stray dogs, then we get a little bit of power. And I'm looking at Paulie Mack being out there, Larry Krueger, obviously, yours truly. We got Tolbert now in the game, Lund's in the game, Sammy's in the game. We are basically KNBR without KNBR.
It's true. Cyrus as well is doing great things with Rick Barry. I mean, there's a lot,
Cyrus
right?
And I do Warriors Weekly every single Wednesday. It's awesome. And so it's awesome to watch it all come together and happen. And there's no doubt the future is over here. It ain't on the radio dial. Unfortunately, you got to look at our ugly mugs. That's part of it. I never wanted to be the guy you looked at. I just wanted to be the guy you had to listen to. So for that, thank you for fighting through it. Cheers and thank you. Little sip of the day here, Sammy. I don't know about you. I can't function without a good cup of coffee.
I got it. No, to get ready for this, I always do. I always do a good amount of reading. I even sent you some interesting figures as well based on today's topics. 'Cause you always get me thinking. Every time we speak before we go on, you get me kind of percolating towards a couple of things. And yes, I get a little coffee as well, and I read up on a few things just to make sure that I know exactly what's going on. But I think what you said also is very right about the Bay Area legends that now exist in this space. And if we could all come together, this would be special. I mean, that would be, talk about your sort of Millennium Falcon that we could, or the Death Star, wherever you want to go with that, but we could create something there.
It's got to happen. Get like 8 heads in talking boxes. Will look like a freaking CNN political night.
Right.
Panel.
There's not a desk big enough, but yes, we can make it.
Right. We're going to need studio A and B to get this entire group in here. Anyways, look, it was a really slow week. It seems like no matter what the week is, the lead story is going to probably be a football story. And I don't even know if I've got the right lead football story, but as far as I'm concerned, Sammy, this is the lead story in football this week. It's why the salary cap has gone up about 50 million from 2 years ago. It's gone up about 25 million this year, 25 million last year. It's growing. Why is it growing? It's because the NFL has essentially found a point in its existence where it can and will print its own money. This isn't about broadcasting rights. This isn't about streamers buying inventory from the NFL. This isn't about Amazon or anything like that, or Peacock or anything. This is money making money. Money knows how to make money. Find a rich friend and ask them, what do you do with your money? They said, I make money with my money. Some of it is in high-risk investment. Some of it is in low-risk investment. And right now, selling off a percentage of an NFL team to the person buying it is a no-risk investment, because there seems to be nothing, Sam, that is going to slow this train down. The San Francisco 49ers are considering a 10% sell-off of their franchise. Zero controlling power, zero input, but you get, 10% of the action. And if the San Francisco 49ers can honestly sell off the 49er or 10% for $1 billion, they are, by the rules of math, now worth $10 billion, which is a couple billion over any guesstimate or estimate that you would see in Forbes or CNBC today. The Eagles, God bless them, it's about time they got some good fortune. The Eagles went through this very thing a little while ago.
A couple of months ago. This is not very long ago at all.
This is why other teams, and the New York Giants, are now saying, we're going to do this too. The NFL basically allowed a third party to come in and buy up 10%. You can bring it to marketplace. The Eagles were supposedly worth between $6.6 and $7 billion, according to Forbes. Now, Forbes is just a list. If you want to find out how much something is worth, try to sell it.
Sell it.
That's how you find out. That's, bring it to marketplace. Well, when they did, 2 families in separate transactions purchased the 8% of the franchise, which then increased the overall franchise to $8.3 billion. And this is before they won the Super Bowl. So the Eagles literally pull money out of thin air through a transaction that, the Lurie family will never even feel or notice.
So think about this. So the Niners are selling 10% at $1 billion. And as you said, the math is simple on that one. And that is well, the figure I'm seeing is about 6.97 billion on the Niners. And of course, we just upped it to 10 billion by snapping our fingers and saying, all right, the sale is going to be 1 billion, multiply. The Eagles, by that same math, sold 10% for $8 billion. So are we talking about an $80 billion Eagles franchise that, by the way, did this, as you said, before they decimated the Chiefs in the Super Bowl?
Now value. They didn't sell off 8% for $8 billion. They're now worth $8 billion because of the percentage they sold off.
It is so incredible to watch what is happening with these franchises making these sales. It is so, as you said, you're inviting somebody in. And by the way, the person making the investment, as you just mentioned, is also then helping their own investment. Because again, right, if the value, again, if it's worth $7 billion before I put my billion in, and then me putting $1 billion in takes it up to $10 billion, I'm already up. I'm up because of the money I put in. How often is that the case? And not that any of us thought an investment in an NFL team wouldn't be worthwhile, but that's immediate. Who sees dividends like that upon arrival? You show up at the poker table, you get your chips, and all of a sudden you just get this is like the bet. This is like any sports book where you're matched money immediately upon depositing. That's essentially what's happening with an NFL team here. You put your money on the table and you're just getting more chips immediately.
The person who sells off 10% is gaining so much profit with their remaining 90% that you'd be nuts to not sell off 10%. And by the way, it's funny how often you have to explain this to people. But when I say it in person, when I say it like when I'm at a bar and I'm talking to somebody, because, the word million was pretty rare when we were kids, and now is bandied about as, hopefully you make $1 million at work. $1 million is something that everyone can wrap their mind around. We casually throw out the number of billion now because it seems to be in play. This is not a casual number. Billion, a lot of people think about it and they're like, whoa, that's $100 million. No, it's $1,000 million. 1,000. So if you're telling me that if I sell $1,000 million worth of something, that then my remaining portion of what I have left is now worth $9,000 million.
That is just a guarantee. There are a few guarantees in life, and the fact that this league is such a guarantee. And also, if you really want to have fun with this $1 billion for 10%, ask Eddie DeBartolo what he bought the team for in 1977. $13 million. And now we're talking about $10 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a nice return on investment.
We're going to talk about Roger Goodell a little bit later on in this live stream, Sam. Not right now, but just an example of growing franchise valuations in just the Roger Goodell era. The Roger Goodell commissionership began in 2006. The last team to sell before Goodell was installed as commissioner was the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings were sold for $600 million in 2006. The last franchise sold, the Washington Commanders, just went for $6.05 billion. And Sammy, they're worth 7 or 8 today.
Immediately they are. Immediately there. And by the way, people in Philadelphia are not happy about Josh Harris because as incredible as it was to see Washington in the NFC Championship this season and what has happened with Jaden Daniels, and of course everyone thinks Washington is absolutely on the rise, and most of it because of this sale and getting Dan Snyder out. Of course, Dan Quinn is a huge part of that, and Jaden Daniels, obviously, but the Sixers, on the other token, are not the shiny toy anymore. And look at what has happened with that investment this season. So in Philly, they're very upset with this ownership group. But from an NFL standpoint, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. When you talk about 2006 versus last season, exponentially, that math doesn't even work out. It doesn't. If you take that amount of years for it to grow like that exponentially for the sale of a team, it does not make sense. This league, as you said, is printing money. And by the way, I think the reason is also no league is quicker to react. And just think about the rules in the league. And as much as there are times when we complain, Damon, about new rules, certainly, but this league reacts immediately. And when you compare it to Major League Baseball, and both of us are huge baseball fans also, but think about how slow things come about in baseball. In the NFL, balls and strikes would be at this point automated with an umpire. It would be. Football reacts that quickly.
We're still measuring first downs with chains, so I don't know.
That I can't stand, and I also hate when a punt goes out of bounds, and the line judge just kind of looks around. What is he like measuring the sun against the logo and just kind of picks a random
on the top of the freaking stadium to help you out there? No, but here's the thing: the reason why the chains exist, still to this day, is because of the drama of pulling that chain out to the football. It's a great television
Nothing
show.
Will ever be Gene Steratore with the what, right? Just with the card in between, right? Putting the index card there between the chain. That is a beautiful moment. Yes. But again, Hawkeye and tennis, but the NFL does.
Fourth was a Raiders game.
Yeah, it was. Of course it was. But the NFL does such a good job. Think about it. We didn't even, in the kickoff, it wasn't as if we even were thinking about the kickoff needing a change. But if you look at the numbers, The kickoff was improved this year. None of us thought it looked amazing, but it did improve what the league wanted it to improve on, which was cutting down on injuries and more balls coming out of the end zone for returns. It happened. Both things happened. So this league adapts quickly and makes changes, and I think that is why it is the most successful.
As a longtime listener, big time Plusser, my man Irwin, he usually shows up with coffee or whiskey for me in person.
Nice.
So I freaking love Irwin on this level.
Oh, yeah.
And this level.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you very much,
Irwin. Thank you.
I like Irwin on a personal level too, not just because he gives me nice things.
That's okay.
He's also making great points all the time. He says Lacob and Peter Guber bought the Warriors for $450 million. Now the team is worth over $9 billion. It's not a bad return. A lot of that value is tied to Steph. A lot of that value is obviously tied to Chase Center. A lot of that value is tied to the NBA's new TV deal. There's a lot of things in play. A lot of that value is tied to San Francisco property value.
Although speaking of that, Damon, I wanted to step on one piece of this. Levi Stadium, not owned by the 49ers.
Isn't that weird?
So that, and I would say as far as invest, I mean, if you, again, the 10% thing we all admit is a great investment, but if you are that has to be figured in. I mean, how much we assume the Cowboys is just because of the America's team moniker, but the Cowboys may lead in valuation also because of what that stadium produces as well.
And it's not just the stadium, it's the Star. They have a practice facility that has a 35,000 seat stadium in it.
Exactly. So you gotta factor that in. It is interesting that this gorgeous new building that the Niners play in is actually not owned by the team. That
that stadium sucks. But we'll talk. That's another show.
That is a whole other show.
But here's the deal. So I'm not a soccer guy. I talked about this yesterday with Lund. I'm not a soccer guy, but I know enough about soccer to know that if every single team on the planet were for sale, a soccer team probably fetches the highest price. A Man U, Juventus. I mean, I don't know if it's European or if it's coming from Spain or Barca. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's probably a soccer team. I'll grant soccer that. But here in America, if every single team in America were for sale, history says it has to be the Yankees. But baseball just doesn't live in that world anymore. Football owns that world. So it's got to be an NFL team. And it's got to be the Dallas Cowboys. Even it shouldn't be. I can't explain to you why it is, but there is a undefinable fascination and interest in the Cowboys, whether they be good, bad. There is no indifference in the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody has an opinion. Nobody has an opinion on the Tennessee Titans. Nobody has a Houston Texans hot take. Not one. None.
But by the way, it's interesting you bring this up. And of course, I gave you the list before we came on here of what the valuations are outside of this 10% sell-off, just what the valuations were. The Cowboys are on top, I think, at $10 billion in this list still. What team should be in the NFL? What team should be highest valued? Now, I'm not even going to throw out a metric. I'm just asking you on a level. I can throw out my answer first if you're not ready. I think it's obvious what should be the team that fetches the most at this point. The team that should be worth the most is, to me, a simple answer.
Are you going to say Los Angeles Rams?
No.
Okay.
The Kansas City Chiefs, with the league's greatest star, absolutely should be. I boil it, and not just the league's greatest star, because if you wanted to argue Lamar, whatnot, not only the league's greatest star that is in the Super Bowl 5 of the last 7 seasons, in the championship game
every year,
7 seasons. So that means that's an extra month of his face. You get an extra month of Patrick Mahomes' face for 7 straight seasons. That, when you look at the TV money and what he means to those contracts, Patrick Mahomes, and I haven't even brought up the name Taylor Swift yet, but I'll just throw it out there as a sprinkle. The Kansas City Chiefs, with the league's greatest and most recognizable star in a league that still probably has a, sort of a helmet issue. And I'm not talking CTE. I'm saying the idea that you can see every NBA player and you would recognize them anywhere. Whereas the NFL, you need to have endorsements to be a recognizable NFL player. There's nobody with more than Patrick Mahomes, and well-deserved. That is a team that not only has the greatest star, but is showing up in the games that matter. Unlike the Cowboys, who we spoke about, whose biggest issue is they can't get back to a championship game.
Okay, so now it's funny how one of the biggest tragedies I think in sports is that profitability for owners is no longer tied to on-field success.
Which is, I do hate that, because we all live in a world where the scoreboard, in fact, we root for a scoreboard, and yet that scoreboard doesn't tie to the dollars. That's
right.
weird.
It's really, really weird, and it's disappointing, and it allows, what John Fisher has done to the A's to exist and happen, and it allows the New York Jets to just sort of try, but not really, for all these years, and do a whole bunch of cosmetic moves, but never really operate on the patient. It's kind of nuts. But look, if we had to say, all right, it should be someone other, I'm going to say this. So if we can agree that it is the Dallas Cowboys, whether it should be or not, but it is.
It is.
And it is. It is. I hate it, but it is. The Dallas Cowboys have to be worth, 10% more than the second most valuable team at all times, right? So if the 49ers can turn around a few months from now and say, hey, we made a sale, we are now worth $10 billion. It's official. In that moment, the Cowboys are worth 13.
Period. You're right. This 10% sale is so good for all the other teams around it, because if you're boosting one team, it's saying, all right, now we are worth that much more, because it's in our league that you are now worth more, and we lead that league. So again, yes, you're right. It is the Cowboys. And I don't think it should. It doesn't really make sense. And the other thing is, what's interesting? How come most things that are tied to generations of the past are obsolete, but yet the Cowboys, who were great. I mean, there are actually 2 generations of sports fans who have not seen the Cowboys in an NFC championship, and yet they still lead. Why? How is it? How is it possible? They're not even, they weren't even on the list when we were talking about potential Chiefs three-peats. The Cowboys weren't even, they didn't do that either. They won 3 or 4. They didn't win 3 in a row. The Cowboys of the 90s are still somehow leading that pack. It doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't add up to me at all.
Nostalgia is undefeated.
That is for sure. That is for sure. Yet when it comes to that, again, but when you talk about generations of people who, phones are completely different and obsolete from the past, right? Technology moves quickly, and yet in sports, nostalgia rules.
It is. It's funny. It's the way it goes. The Lacobs. You talk about the crowning achievement of Joe Lacob, and you can talk about blowing draft picks or being too cantankerous now as an owner or whatever you want. Joe Lacob has the Warriors worth more than the Lakers or the Knicks. And that is a universe that could have never existed 20 years ago, but it certainly does now. Having said all that, if the Lakers, Knicks, and Warriors all went for sale on the same day and the sale had to be closed by 5 o'clock, end of business, there's no way the Warriors are the most sold for more than the Lakers or the Knicks, right?
It feels like it wouldn't happen. However, I feel that the NBA, much like my argument for the Chiefs that they should be the most because of Mahomes, in the NBA, the star power does drive the dollar a little more. And again, I think maybe it is the helmet and the being recognizable. What Steph did by being a recognizable and relatable star, and then, of course, winning on the grandest level the way that he did, including against the league's biggest star in LeBron early on, that made a difference immediately. So you might have that, but you wouldn't right now, because that Warriors team is not quite there. It would be the Lakers for a couple of reasons. Obviously, for what they mean, nostalgia, as we just mentioned, and Luka and LeBron together right now, even when you look towards the future of the fact that you've got that baton immediately right there staring at you, because in the Bay Area, you don't necessarily have that baton. You do with LeBron to Luka, and nobody would argue that there's a team better poised for the next 10 years than the Lakers right now. I do want to say about Lacob, do you remember when Rick Barry was on the court? They were celebrating something with Chris Mullin and Rick.
It was the Chris Mullin retirement party.
And Rick had to say, everybody stop booing. It was about not retaining Monte Ellis, if I remember correctly. And everyone,
it was about that. So here's the thing. Whenever Rick Barry is telling an entire crowd to shut up. I've met these guys. Don't boo them. That's not helping either. But here's
look what it did. That was such a turning point if you think about it, because in that moment, those Warriors were not, there was nothing to believe. It was still the We Believe team was still the greatest moment that the team had achieved.
Yeah, Smiley Dan nailed it. Come on, people.
Yeah,
that was the sound. Come on,
Rick,
people.
It was such an amazing moment. Come on, people. Do not boo this man. I trust in what this man will do. And yet, look at what happened since, quote, come on, people. Look at what has happened.
It rattled Lacob. It made his then girlfriend, now wife, Nicole, apparently she cried her eyes out that night. The whole thing just didn't sit well. And I don't know if that really lit the fire under Lacob. I think Lacob, as a former Celtics owner, he came in with some fire, but he thought that he was going to go out and take a bow as new Warrior ownership.
They wouldn't let him out there.
Going to be happy to see
They wouldn't
him.
even let him out there.
No, it was no matter what he had done, he was going to get booed. Trading Monte Ellis or not, just Warrior ownership at that point in time, no matter who you were, you embodied something worth booing. And he proved everybody wrong. God bless him. He really did. But again, number one team in the NBA valuation. I really, wow. It's amazing that that's happened. If every single team in hockey, Sam, were for sale, is anyone getting more than the Canadians or Maple Leafs, Rangers, King?
Shouldn't be. I would think Rangers could actually drive that, but again, relevancy recently, I'm not sure. And again, I want to point to, I just want to go to my same argument. Should it be the Oilers?
The Toronto Maple Leafs are the Dallas Cowboys.
They are.
Of Canada.
And yet, I feel like it should be Edmonton. You've got the nostalgia factor of Gretzky, Messier winning cups the way that they did. And then you've got the number one player in the game who scored, obviously, the goal we spoke about already last night to win. He's a 3-time Hart Trophy winner. He won the Conn Smythe while losing the Stanley Cup just recently. Connor McDavid is the league's greatest star without question. And he plays for a franchise which is legendary.
Great unis. Great colors.
Great unis, amazing colors, both throwback, original, third jersey, whatever it is, the best. And yet, and it is in Edmonton. And I wonder why not, but I'm still going to argue should be. I'll say should be Edmonton.
I mean, Teemu Selanne, Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, let's go.
That might they had a moment in time. They really.
And by the way, and why not? By the way, and if I was buying a team, though, I'd want to buy Vegas. I mean, that's the team I'd want to own. I mean, for Vegas to show up, go to the Stanley Cup in their first season, win a Stanley Cup within 3 seasons, and to be in the mecca of what I think the future of sports is going to be. You've heard my take on the Super Bowl in Vegas every single season. That's not, and it's not because I want to be on the Strip. I just think Vegas is the investment when you're talking about sports into the future.
I mean, look at it this way. Not a lot of towns are built to have 100,000 people come through the turnstiles with no delay. When a Super Bowl gets to a city, it normally paralyzes the infrastructure of the city. When the Super Bowl got to Las Vegas, it was like, and what else? What else are we doing this weekend? Convention come through here that's actually going to be bigger than the Super Bowl next week. This is no big deal.
What are we doing next? What else are we doing this week? Is what Vegas said. Yeah, that's amazing. But I think Golden Knights would be that if we were talking valuations.
If you could. And by the way, there were some talks of this happening. There's talks of this happening in Tallahassee around Florida State. Imagine if you could take a college football team and sell off 10% like the Niners are trying to do. Which college football team do you think would be the most valuable in America?
Considering he didn't take the Cowboys job, I really think Colorado, although they're about to lose a huge star in Travis Hunter. I liked, again, I'm going to this star power idea, but I think if you mix in nostalgia and winning, etc., the conference realignment changes this also. Because, you would have said SEC, you would have said Bama, you don't have Saban there anymore. Georgia was at the apex and now is not. Obviously, Ohio State's a brand name and a champion. But wait, am I ridiculous? It's Notre Dame. It's still Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame is there.
Notre Dame is there for sure. Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Notre Dame.
Okay.
Didn't even have to think about it list.
Got it. Yeah, I think I would have fallen on Notre Dame. That would have been the one that I feel like, because there's something about Notre Dame win or lose that feels like there's relevance there, and so again, one of those teams
that nobody's in the middle on.
Right.
You either really like Notre Dame or you really don't.
Yeah, because you don't like, but I think Notre Dame, unlike other, as we said early, the politics of it, Notre Dame also stands for something in the country that's also divisive in a way. And people think they've had an unfair advantage, the lack of affiliation over the years. I mean, Notre Dame is on an island, in a way that other programs are not.
By the way, you know what I noticed just the other day? It's funny that you bring this up. I didn't think I was going to bring this up at all, but I am playing college football on PlayStation 5, right?
Right, as you should.
And I'm in I got the Hoosiers in South Bend. We're playing Notre Dame.
What a game.
Big win, by the way, for Indy. Big win. I mean, it wasn't even in doubt. It was put feet up on the ottoman type.
Who was your quarterback? Randall L? Who are we going with there on this one?
Oh, no. The quarterback was Damon Bruce. He got it done. He got it done. 5-star recruit out of Schenectady, New York. Look out.
You got it.
Anyway, so, Sam, the Notre Dame, like the game is just starting. Like you get the players running on the field and they really try to make it look like game day.
It's awesome.
And they did an incredible job with this game. And then you got Notre Dame players getting into the end zone, taking a knee, and then you can see them start to, you don't get the full crucifix
but
blessing,
you know what they're doing.
But you see the start of it, and then they cut away. And there's no other team. There is no other team that has any religious ideology attached to it at all, the way that Notre Dame does.
Touchdown Jesus changes this conversation for me.
It just
does. It does. That is divisive beyond what you think about the unfair NBC contract or the idea that you don't have to be affiliated. There's just all of that. And then I also think there's an interesting juxtaposition that it is both the most religious team and yet tied most easily to drinking, right? I mean, this sort of the Irish part of it is so, it really is. You can love Notre Dame. You can convince yourself that as a terrible person, you love Notre Dame because it's tied to Irish and drinking and that. And then you can also say, no, I'm someone who's got incredible morals. And that is why I love Notre Dame. So There you go. You cover everybody.
Joseph asked Damon, what about college basketball?
Oh,
well, it would be Duke.
This is easy.
Kentucky, Kansas. I mean, everyone's waiting for me to say Indiana. I'm telling you, we have played ourselves off the one line of college football.
That's a shame. I didn't think this was going to come up today, but perfect season. Damon, you are on my reading list, and I would not consider myself a reader per se. If someone really convinces me, I will sit down with a book. And the Bobby Knight, for those that haven't read it, for anyone who is a college basketball fan, please, it's got to be there, Damon. It's got to be there behind you.
Season on the Brink's here somewhere.
Season on the Brink must be read for the perfect Indiana season with Bob Knight, and that's why Indiana has to at least be in the conversation. But it still feels like Duke is this. It just in a landslide, and of course, Coach, it's got to be there. Please. Maybe I stole it. Did I ever give it back to you? Maybe I didn't, but Duke, even though Coach K is not,
it might be on the other bookshelf actually.
Okay, that's great. Well, in the one, the one that is not just a facade.
That's so well read.
You're so well read. You're so storied and cultured. I'm going to say Duke and just stop the conversation. I think it's Duke. I want to say, being in Southern California, I want to say UCLA could be that, and and obviously when you look at the campus and what it could mean, but UCLA is just not there college basketball wise in regards to relevancy every season. I think Duke is just. When is Duke not part of the conversation in college basketball?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big, by the way, we got UConn. Look, UConn just joined the conversation of blue blood success. Yes. If we were pricing out most valuable, college basketball teams, UConn isn't even close to the top 10. What do you
But I'm glad someone brought it up. It'd be ridiculous for us to have this conversation and not mention back-to-back champions. And also, and UConn has won.
Carolina is a bigger deal than UConn.
They are. But UConn, I at least want to tip my hat to, also has won in multiple generations, right? This isn't just sort of a what have you done for me lately? I mean, we've got Napier, and I mean, there are really different UConn teams that have won over time. And you talk about Rip Hamilton, and so it's worth it.
Rebecca Lobo,
of course, yes. That's
great UConn teams. Okay, so one of the other things that we wanted to talk about today is the quarterback spin the bottle that the NFL is about to play here in this offseason. Now, while everyone's looking at free agency and the combine and your mock draft season that's about to come out, there are some seriously big names on the, I guess you could go out and sign that guy right now.
Good. It can happen.
With the quarterbacks that are out there. I want to bring up the player. Let's talk about who they are and talk about where they might go, where they should go. 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I think he might go to Las Vegas. I think he might be a Stafford replacement.
Interesting, LA.
In LA if Stafford were to actually retire or be traded. But I think that Aaron Rodgers would be best served if he just retired. I think that the end of Aaron Rodgers' career is so set up to just be the end of Y.A. Tittle's career. Like, this is a battered performer on a knee, bleeding from his forehead. Like, it's already over, Aaron. Let's admit it.
So, first of all, I want to tip a cap to Siciliano, who had mentioned, what if Purdy negotiation doesn't go right, and what if Aaron Rodgers gets his wish to finally play in the Bay Area and meet up with Kyle Shanahan? So I want to throw that out. The other, though, is I'm going to tie Aaron Rodgers to Brett Favre. Now, if you can spin back your brain to remember Favre with the Jets, and again, so Favre goes Packers, then Jets, and much like Rodgers and what you just said, felt like it was over. The New York chapter was ugly for Brett Favre. Ugly for many reasons, not even just on the field. It was bad, and it felt like it was over. And his next step,
nodding in agreement
Jen Sturger is definitely, and good for her, but then Minnesota. And the Vikings were on the rise at the time, but who put them over the top was Favre. Favre got them into that NFC championship where, yes, he did throw an interception late.
Got New Orleans.
It was New Orleans. It was the Saints. You're right. That was the year the Saints actually went on and beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. But Favre was an incredible radio call. This is the Super Bowl, man. This is not Detroit. It was an incredible call. They were so upset with Favre for throwing the interception in that game. They were in what you could argue was field goal range when he threw that. But Favre had an awesome resurgence of his career in Minnesota. And considering what Minnesota is looking at right now in regards to quarterback, I just like that. I like that connective tissue, and I think Rodgers could provide something to a very stacked roster in Minnesota.
Maybe a deep ball to Justin Jefferson would be really interesting. And I'm telling you, if you're just going to flip the keys to J.J. McCarthy, like, good luck with that, Minnesota. Good luck with that.
Exactly. And you could, and again, to have Rodgers there for a year even to say, and look, no one understands better the idea of playing behind somebody than Aaron Rodgers. So if he could now be the Favre to Rodgers, he could be that to McCarthy. Maybe he's willing to do that. And we saw what O'Connell did for Darnold. And if we think that Rodgers needs some better coaching than he got in New York, I love the Minnesota thing. I just think that, and in that division where they obviously respect the hell out of him.
28-year-old Sam Darnold. Where is Sam Darnold going to end up here? And if you're Tennessee, why wouldn't you? If you're Tennessee, if you're thinking about signing Sam Darnold, what you're saying is, we don't like any of these quarterbacks coming out. We don't like a single rookie quarterback. So do you want to then attach yourself to a bridge to nowhere guy because you still have yet to identify your QB of the future? Or do you want someone who, he's got questions about him, but he's also 28 years old. Like, Sam Darnold can grow into your quarterback for the next 5 years if he does fit. Why wouldn't the Titans give Sam Darnold a call?
And the Titans can't be in love with what happened at quarterback last season. That was ugly, and that was a team that showed flashes, but certainly not enough. And with Levis, I know that they've got to be looking at it in another direction at this point. If I'm Sam Darnold, so I'm going to take this not from the fan perspective, but I'm Sam Darnold, I want to stay in Minnesota.
Yeah.
If I'm Sam Darnold, everything worked out, and I've seen in other organizations what can happen when I am not supported. And even in Carolina, where he had a little bit for a moment, there was that success. And obviously we that stripped away quickly, but there was a hot start there in Carolina. Then there was going to San Francisco, feeling supported, kind of taking the Kyle Shanahan quarterback camp. And then with O'Connell reaching this next level we've never seen from Darnold. And I don't want to take games out of people's career, but even with the loss to end the regular season to Detroit, and with the loss in Arizona against the Rams in the wild card round, where we all know he was under duress, etc. But what Sam Darnold did this season,
it was a hell of a year.
for Sam Darnold's NFL career, that's it. If I'm Sam Darnold, I do not, no matter what my agent's telling me, want to leave Minnesota. That's where I want to be. I don't want to roll the dice on what could happen because I know what it's like to be in New York with the Jets. And when I'm not supported, I'm not the same guy, period.
It's amazing. And I'm not saying that Darnold is doing this, but it's amazing how often a player will leave a really good situation to pursue bigger dollars in a situation that is so undefined you can't even speak with any real knowledge of it. And, this is to me, it's going back to, even though one player is much more established, Kevin Durant is a much bigger figure in basketball than Sam Darnold will ever be in the NFL. But for Kevin Durant to be in the best situation that he'll ever be in his career and say, still not good enough for me, I want to go somewhere else, I want to do my own thing. It's still one of the ultimate you fuck that ups in sports history.
It is. And I loved that period of time. There was not a more exciting. I've told you, I love the idea of the Chiefs going undefeated. So I love the dominance of that Warriors team with Durant. You know what? I'm only upset with one thing. The fact that Cleveland beat them down 0-3 in the finals. That I believe that was 2015 when they were perfect up until both teams were actually perfect going into the finals.
That was before Durant got here.
No. It was the Durant team that lost the game to LeBron when they were up 3-0. They were perfect in the run, and the only loss that was the Durant team. That one that was perfect up until that moment, and that was the most dominant team I ever saw. The Durant, Steph.
Durant joined the 72 win Warriors.
But I'm not talking 72. I'm talking the perfect run in the postseason.
Oh, the postseason.
Right. No. That team went faux, and then 1-5. That team went faux 5. But they were faux 3.
Right.
And it could have been, and they lost on a Friday night to LeBron for the gentleman's sweep, the 5-game sweep in the finals. But that I just wanted to see that because that team was that good. They deserved in the history books to be said, we didn't lose a game in the playoffs because they were that much better than everybody else. And that was a shame we didn't. So like you said, even Durant snips the dollars and leaves. I think Durant and Darnold are coming from a different place where Darnold can really understand what it's like to not get to that level and to not have the people around him.
37-year-old Kirk Cousins, who I call him, my nickname for Kirk Cousins is 8-8. He'll give you 8 really good football games any year. You don't know where they're going to happen. You don't know where they're coming from. But when you see him, you go, holy shit, he is a pro. And then the other 8 games are the reasons why you're then looking to move on from Kirk Cousins. Every single time you fall in love with him, there's a reason to not fall in love with him. Look at how great the start was in Atlanta. And then what he had all those weeks in a row where he just couldn't find an end zone. It was bad, right? Kirk Cousins, to me, if I'm the Raiders, I've already flown him out and talked to him. This is the stabilizing presence that the Raiders desperately need to attach to their franchise. He is the right, I think, quarterback for Pete Carroll to lean into and say, all right, Pete Carroll is credibility. Kirk Cousins is credibility. There is zero credibility attached to this franchise beyond the fact that Tom Brady gets to walk in 10% owner, whatever he is now. But that's it.
You and I are on the same page on this exactly. I didn't know you were going to have that answer. You didn't know I was going to have this answer. The only name you didn't bring up that I have tied to this is Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly, what he did for Nick Foles. Now I'm talking 2013 Nick Foles. Not a lot of people remember this, but Nick Foles was an MVP candidate in 2013, threw 7 touchdown passes against the Raiders in that season and led the Eagles with Chip Kelly as his head coach to an NFC East championship. They did lose in that wild card to the Saints that season, but that was the best that Nick Foles was. Because remember, Nick Foles over an entire season, we all remember, of course, the Super Bowl run with the Eagles, but that was not an entire season. That was Wentz, who obviously did all that. Foles' best regular season without question was with Chip Kelly. And if you look at Mark Sanchez's career, even though he made AFC championship appearances back-to-back with the Jets, his best statistical seasons in the league were with Chip Kelly as his head coach.
That was an awful lot of Jets defense pulling them the AFC title games.
Exactly. But when you look at what Sanchez did in Philly with Chip Kelly there. And when you look at what Nick Foles did with Chip Kelly gets the most out of quarterbacks who we may not be expecting enough from. And he could do that with Kirk Cousins. And remember, Kirk Cousins did throw for 500 yards. We're not talking 3 years ago. We're at this point, we're talking about 4 months ago, less than, that Kirk Cousins threw for 500 yards in a game that mattered against Tampa, that game almost got them into the playoffs. That's why they were alive the last week of the season, is because of that win in overtime. So it's there for Cousins, and I love the silver and black tie.
36-year-old Russell Wilson. Again, I would have said Raiders, but I can't imagine he and Pete Carroll wanting to get back in bed together, although that would be funny. That would be interesting. It was Marshawn that broke them up all along. Those two really were in love with each other, but I don't think that's going to be it at all, because Wilson was going to go off book. Carroll wanted him on book. I don't know if Wilson is the off book quarterback anymore, though. So maybe there is a fit. Maybe familiarity would bring them together. I actually think he stays in Pittsburgh. I also think the New York Giants could be in play. And that would be the funniest, because Russell Wilson would last about 5 minutes in New York before everybody fucking hated that phony.
And what about the other New York team in regards to the Jets? There's also that idea. And I don't think we know enough about what the new face of that team will be from both a GM standpoint and a coach standpoint. We're not exactly sure what that's going to be under Aaron Glenn, but that's an interesting one. I thought also, I've heard that Pete Carroll and Russ sort of made up, that has been mended. I've heard that that's been mended. And so that rumor is very real about Las Vegas, but I don't like it as much. I'd love to see the irony of him replacing Rodgers now in New York. I just don't know that the Jets are probably not going to convince themselves that this idea of sort of like a retread the way Rodgers now will seem to
go in another direction.
Right. It's unlikely that they're gonna lean youth, would be my guess. But I also think that Tomlin got to tell the rest of the league, I was right and you weren't, because everyone thought what they were doing with Fields was good enough. And he thought, no, we can reach another level with Wilson. And they were right up until a point. Yes, they lost 5 straight games to end their season. But before that, they had beaten Baltimore. They were leading that division, and it looked like they were a Super Bowl contender.
Right. People were whispering, Steelers.
I was on that band. I threw $100 at Bet US as well for that one, thinking, all right, this could happen for Pittsburgh. And of course it didn't. But again, like I said, for Darnold in Minnesota, for how ugly as it was for Russ in Denver, doesn't he think, all right, I found something here? And who's more stable? When you talk about Kirk Cousins being the 8-8, what about what Tomlin does in regards to staying out of losing seasons? Russ has to think Tomlin did something for him. Tomlin stabilized what was going to be an ugly end to his career.
Yeah, if I were him, I wouldn't want to go anywhere. And if I'm Pittsburgh, I don't think I want to go flushing Russell Wilson until I have someone else identified. And obviously, that's not going to be 26-year-old Justin Fields, who, let's be totally honest, Justin Fields at this point in his career is Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson, but with many more actual snaps on his body, with a negotiable degree of success. I mean, we'd have to debate it. It's a debatable degree of success for Justin Wilson. There are times when you think, and then there are times when you look at him and you're like, oh, this isn't even a professional quarterback. He throws this ball around like he's watering the lawn. Like this thing could drop anywhere. You just don't really believe in him. And then he does some things that makes you go, huh. And he's still 26. He's
Justin
only
Fields,
26.
I think Fields is a fair investment. If you go back, not this past season, which by the way, I think there were definitely moments early in this season when he was starting for Pittsburgh that you could say Justin Fields had it. And remember that finishing the previous, remember Eberflus was in, as much as we remember the horrible clock mismanagement on Thanksgiving Day for Eberflus, what the Bears were to finish the 2023 season, that was on the up. That was, again, remember, Hard Knocks, like there was a lot behind this Bears team coming into the 2024 season because of how Fields and that defense played at the back end of the season in 2023. And that was Fields. Fields had it. I've got an easy answer for Fields. I have an easy one. This one fits to me, and I see it. But I see him in Philadelphia. I see Fields as a guy. I see Fields as a guy who could do what we see now, what we know about Hurts, the run pass option that clearly didn't just dissect the Chiefs. If you look over the entirety of the season after the bye week, what the Eagles did offensively was something that Fields could absolutely duplicate for Hurts. Now, I don't know if he's going to have the accuracy, but again, they cut way down on the passing attempts. And Fields looks like, think about who they've had. They've had Mariota was there 2 seasons ago under Hurts. And then what Pickett was able to provide in there, and Pickett was able to move the tush push. None of us think Fields couldn't run that tush push either. I think Fields supported in Philadelphia, and we know he's going to have to start a couple games for Hurts. I think that makes sense.
37-year-old Matthew Stafford still has a golden arm. Of all the names that we just talked about, Rodgers, Cousins, Wilson, the guy who I think might have the most left is the one who seems to be considering retiring out loud the most. Matthew Stafford staying with the Rams, I think, makes an awful lot of sense. If the Rams were to trade him to the New York Giants, if I'm the New York Giants, I am running to make that trade, I think. This guy would be more stability and credibility than your franchise has had in a very, very long time on the offensive side of the ball. And then, getting him out of the NFC West, there's a lot of reasons to doubt what the 49ers might be next year. The reasons to like them are as follows. Last place schedule, a special teams that is no longer going to be playing exclusively for the opponent. Robert Saleh's back in the room. Let's see what kind of draft that they have. Last place schedule, Shanahan officially feeling like the heat under his seat being turned up. How about that? Shanahan's going to the combine. Shanahan does not normally go to the combine. Shanahan's going to the combine, which means either he said, I think I need to be there, or somebody told him, you get your fucking ass there, dude. Like there is a
let's go
behind Kyle that I don't think was there going into last year. And I hope that goes about the way they deal with free agents, with Purdy's deal, this Brock Purdy deal better be done at the stroke of league business year is now open. Like, no putzing around with this. I want to get back
to the Purdy thing because I also want to bring up Deebo before we go. I love Stafford in 2 places. So there's the Detroit connection, not that they were there together per se, but just Detroit. I'm going to say the Jets again. Stafford, as far as stabilizing for the Jets, and you'd have, again, that Aaron Glenn sort of Detroit vibe. So that I could see. Number 2, though, a team that was really, when you look at what they got out of their quarterback last season, that was the biggest disappointment. And they were a team that was in contention. Indianapolis, the Colts, were in contention. They've got great weapons, great young weapons in Pittman and Jonathan Taylor, and Stafford in Indy, where you don't quite know what you have out of Richardson and you're still trying to figure it out. Maybe Stafford could be exactly what, Flacco was almost going to be that, and he didn't quite capture the magic that he had in Cleveland the season before. Stafford in Indy, I could see that happening. That's a team that's gone to the playoffs with Phillip Rivers. Ever since Luck, think about it, it hasn't all been bad. That team was in the playoffs with Phillip Rivers, and Stafford feels like he could be exactly that for Indy. So I do like that. But I wanted to ask you about Purdy and Deebo. We're talking free agency here, so it's not exactly about them, but Deebo with a trade, on the horizon, and the idea of what are you going to pay Purdy, because these free agents could be in conversations for the Niners if they feel like they want to move on from Purdy. Also, we could have named any of those guys for the Niners if they don't love Purdy, but
I think they do. I think there are data points that make them love Purdy. I think that the fact that everyone but for Brock Purdy has already been fired means that they should show him some loyalty. I think he is coming in $55 million. I think he's getting market price. I do. He's already given it the office with the most bang for your buck contract maybe ever given out in the Bay Area. Besides, Steph is winning MVPs for $11 million. That's a song. Beyond that, I think Purdy's about to get paid. I think he deserves to get paid. And behind him, I could see a Joe Flacco. I could see a Daniel Jones or a Zach Wilson getting a Sam Darnold bounce off of a year of being under Shanahan.
And that's where Jones should go, by the way. We didn't mention Jones in the free agency pool, but Jones should be in San Francisco.
I think so, too.
Yeah. Daniel Jones should absolutely go hang out with Kyle Shanahan. Purdy deserves the money. I've told you this before. It was the first Rams, the game that you were up on the Rams. Niners were up on the Rams and lost that game. In the game that there was no Kittle, no Deebo, and then the Rams also didn't have Kupp or Nakua in that game. They may not have had Kyron Williams either, but Purdy was excellent with Jennings in that game, and it said a lot to me. Minus the weapons, to see Purdy in that game, he led that team, and I just can't get it out of my mind. Purdy was in the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago, up on the we don't want to bring up horrible memories, but up on the Chiefs in a game. I mean, played.
He walked off the field with a lead.
Sure did. He sure did. He sure did. And so that tells you Purdy is capable of quite a lot. So he's going to get paid. And we talked about valuation earlier. He's going to make 55, period. And he may make 60, which is now that might be pushing it. But
what I really want is the NFL is showing us how easy it is for them to print their own money. Is grow your rosters to 60 being dressed on game day. Grow your practice squad by about another 5 to 10 players. Have continuity. Make sure that the term cap casualty is being used less and less and less each and every offseason. That's what the NFL needs. I mean, I don't know what could ever bring this league down to its knees beyond a betting or gambling scandal.
Sure. And they've had a couple, by the way. I mean, player-wise.
But I'm talking like a big one.
Okay, right.
And X marks the spot. This game, I don't think was rigged. We have the email of the officials saying, that's put ugly. 400 tonight on the Chargers. That level of hand in the cookie jar caught.
Yes.
That would really hurt football. But I mean, let's be honest. Even with that, we're all fucking back there 1 o'clock Sunday.
No matter what, there's almost nothing that can be done.
There's no amount of that guy did something politically I don't like. There's no amount of that guy hit his wife in an elevator that I don't like. There's no amount of gambling. I don't think that these referees are on the level. You
didn't bring up how about
down.
Colin Kaepernick? I mean, the Kaepernick kneeling thing was probably the closest.
That's the thing. Political, whatever.
Didn't matter. Didn't matter. Right. Didn't matter.
I'm never watching again. Bullshit.
Sure. It is people claimed they left the game, and it's never been in a better place.
You will be back before the coin hits the ground to determine heads or tails. That's how fast you're going to be back.
The league can do no wrong, in essence.
And that, I guess, brings us to what we'll call the final topic of the show today.
Let's go there.
It's a big job. I think it's a job that comes with an awful lot of slings and arrows attached to it. But it's also the easiest freaking job in the world on any other level that we were just talking about, because this whole thing seems too big to fail. Roger Goodell celebrated a 66th birthday this week, and whether or not you think he's good at his job, he can prove that he is, because he signed 4 contracts with the NFL as commissioner, and he has 10x'd his own salary. In 2006, his starting salary was $6.5 million. In 2023, $64 million for a guy to tell Jim Trotter, we're not racist against black journalists, and then fire Jim Trotter. And you know why he did that? Not because he's a racist, not because he's a bad guy. He does whatever the NFL owners tell him to do. He is their puppet. He is their human shield. When you see a Cincinnati Bengal dying on a football field, almost, you get angry at Roger Goodell. You don't get angry at Mike Brown, the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's why Mike Brown is comfortable paying Roger Goodell $64 million a year, because everybody motherfucks him, which means they're not coming for them. And that's why he gets paid what he gets paid.
And I mentioned this earlier. Goodell is also quick to listen and quick to make changes. That is what's crucial in this league. People complain and the league does listen. Josh Allen loses a playoff game in overtime to Patrick Mahomes, and people think it's unfair because Josh Allen played so well. And the next year, the overtime rule is changed. That is a league that listens and has its finger on the pulse, and Goodell is there to say yay or nay on that. Goodell, as you said, yes, he is the shield of the shield, so that helps tremendously. He takes the slings. He's absolutely worth it. And I don't even know, I don't spend a lot of time hating commissioners in what I do. I just think it's unnecessary for us to not like commissioners. And when you're the commissioner of the most popular league in our world, you're doing something right. And remember, he took this over He took this over and the league was in a great place. It's not like Goodell got what's going to happen with the NFL and Goodell saves it. Most people will say it is harder to take a good team and make it great than an awful team good. And with Goodell here, he took a great league and made it exponentially outstanding.
There's no doubt
that's what he's done.
There's no doubt that he is involved in the success, but also just the explosion of digital age, everything that I think has propelled the league to a place in revenue that no one could have ever imagined. Although I do remember very much, like I am on KNBR 1050. I mean, this is going way back in my career. And Roger Goodell had, everyone was laughing when the quote came out that he sees football being a $20 billion a year entity. And everyone's like, no, Roger, you're not going to make that kind of money. And sure enough,
it is. And not only that, convincing the players to play an extra game. Look, and I'm not necessarily a fan anymore. I loved the exclusivity of the NFL. I love the idea that there were those 16 weeks where everything mattered. 17, obviously, but 16 games for your team. Adding doesn't help the math for me, but it does for the public. Another week of gambling, another week of revenue, another home game. It is brilliant that he convinced the players to play another game, to put their body through that much more. And again, what was the perfect solve on that? Oh, we'll take away a preseason game, which nobody cares about. Okay, right. Great. You know what? Good math, great call. And I'm also not a huge fan of it, but even just Thursday night football for every Thursday. And remember, Damon, that was not popular amongst the players. Thursday night football, players didn't like the turnaround. And now, if you ask most players, they love the mini bye week. That's what they look at it as. They actually look at it as, I can sacrifice this week, play on Thursday, and then I get essentially a mini bye into the next week. All of a sudden now, who's complaining about Thursday night football? Nobody.
I do. I complain about it, but
guess what? And I'm with you. I loved the sanctity of Sunday and one extra day on Monday. I don't like how it breaks up the week with Thursday, but guess what?
I'm there. I'll complain about it.
You and I are there every single Thursday. So that's it. And the players were complaining, and you don't hear it anymore. It is not a thing. And that's the magic of Goodell.
Speaking of complaining, it feels like old news on a Friday. But we will get Sam's incredibly hot NBA All-Star Game opinion in just a moment here. One more, though, on just being commissioner of the NFL, and it's a really good job. And look how much it's changed. And look at the men. There have been 5 NFL commissioners of this league, starting with Elmer Layden, who was basically selling cars in Ohio. Like, that's where the league was at that time. Elmer Layden, from 41 to 46, is the first commissioner ever in the league. Then you get Burt Bell. Burt Bell, former Eagles owner. By the way, did you know that Burt Bell died of a heart attack at an Eagles game at Franklin Field? He died while the Eagles were scoring a game-winning touchdown. Talk about loving the game.
Talk about walk-off.
There it is, right there. Then you get Burt Bell giving away to a 1-year, he's not even listed, forgot his name, I didn't write it down, interim commissioner before they finally vote on Pete Rozelle. And Pete Rozelle is still, to this day, the longest-serving NFL commissioner. Rozelle served nearly 3 decades. His first contract was for $50,000. His last contract, he was making more than $1 million a year. I think the first commissioner in any sport to make money like that. Tagliabue comes in. By the time he stepped down to give it to Goodell in 2006, he was making $8 million. Roger Goodell, who was the handpicked selected successor to Paul Tagliabue, moves into a job that he basically didn't even have to apply for, and is now making $63 million a year going, we're not racist, but we're firing Jim Trotter. We care about player safety, but we're adding a game. We care about player safety, but we'll have the Steelers play 3 games in 15 days in December at the end of the year.
And you can sell a 10th of your franchise for $1 billion. Who's complaining about that?
No one. And at that point, they're like, we don't care who dies on the field. $1 billion? $1 billion? right now. Thanks, Raj. By the way, another thing is I was doing a little bit of like my commissioner deep dive.
Yeah, let's go, please.
So when Pete Rozelle presented Al Davis the Lombardi Trophy, this is after Al had won his lawsuit against the NFL, and Goodell and Al Davis were blood feuds.
Rozelle, not Goodell. Rozelle, yeah.
Thank you very much. Pete Rozelle and Al Davis hated each other to the point where when Pete Rozelle had to present the Lombardi Trophy to Al Davis, he did it with two hands on the trophy so he wouldn't have to shake his hand.
It's incredible.
How great is that? That's old man stubbornness that doesn't even exist anymore.
No, that's like something out of Succession. I mean, really, that is fantastic, and the foresight to go into something like that.
I'm not giving you your photo op, you SOB. I'm not shaking your hand.
It ain't happening. Even on this day, even on your greatest day.
Even on your day. Oh, by the way, Austin Gunsill was your acting commissioner, 59-60. Let's just get him in there. I'm glad Art made the show. Glad he made the show. Real quick, I got to bring this up here because this made me laugh. I want to find this for you. And then we will get your incredible, no one could have even imagined it would have happened today, All-Star game reaction. But I have to share a screen real quick.
I'm excited for this one.
Today, the New York Yankees have reversed what has been, since the New York Yankees were founded, position of no player will have mismanaged facial hair. Don Mattingly got to have a mustache, but basically beyond that, it was the Yankees are not allowed to have facial hair. Today, Hal Steinbrenner released a 3-paragraph press release saying that we're going to allow this now. And a lot of people are like, well, welcome to modern times, New York Yankees. And it was always stupid. Now, look, the old man, Steinbrenner, this was his thing. This is how they honored the patriarch. This is the old man says clean-shaved Yankees. The old man gets what the old man wants. Well, the old man's dead, and the new generation is here. And so they're now going to allow Yankees to have facial hair. And Jason Jones on Twitter put this up. He's like, yeah, and so in 1 week, the New York Yankees.
No, it's great. That is
New York Yankees 1 week from now are going to be rocking facial hair like this. You're going to look like freaking Ming the Merciless from Flash Gordon. It's probably not going to get that hyphy, if you will, but Yankees facial hair, Sam Betesh, our long national nightmare, I guess, is over.
And here, and you remember both. This was painful for us when Jason Giambi went to the Yankees. That was such. I mean that was, first of all, for what he was. Giambi was such a man's man, almost a caveman with the A's for that run, and then for him to go to the Yankees, it felt like, wow, well, certainly Giambi's not going to have to clean up, and yet there it was. And of course, we saw Johnny Damon go from the Red Sox to the Yankees and clean it up. When you think about what happened in the World Series this past season, facial hair on the Yankees for last season, Nestor Cortez has got a pretty dominant mustache there. And considering how ugly that finished in game 1 of the World Series, it's ironic that now the team is saying, all right, facial hair, we don't care. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want at this point. Nestor's got a great mustache. Let's go with it. However you want to do it.
Dropping cans of corn, Aaron.
Exactly. And look, think about it's true though. The Yankees were known for, think about it. The Yankees teams that won games, obviously the Jeter flip, for them to that game 5. I went back and watched this just the other day, just to remember, how did the season really end? Game 5, which the Yankees were leading 5-0 with their ace on the mound, gave that lead up in 1 inning with 3 errors. So already the lure of the Yankees is out. I think this is perfectly in line with that. Get rid of the idea that facial hair matters at all. And look, I like a good pinstripe. I can understand why it happened, but please get that out of here. And again, it was stunning to watch Aaron Judge drop that ball, to see the play that happened at first base without covering first. I mean, the way that unraveled, please go back and look at that. For those that hate the Yankees, if you really hate the Yankees, you can be upset that they were in the World Series, but to lose the World Series the way that they did,
Savage.
the way that they did, and again, to the Dodgers, which remember in New York, that's still a major rivalry.
You know what that is? It's their 28-3.
It is. For that game, it is, because everyone admits that it was feeling like a series. The Dodgers had gone up 3-0, but they lost game 4, and game 5 was done. It was, 5-0.
Right.
5-0 with Garrett Cole on the mound. And he actually got the ground ball to get out of the inning, and yet still they let it unravel.
Dave Roberts hadn't quite stolen second base, but they were going to get back into the series. It felt like
it was happening, and then
Rizzo
not covering whatever.
By the way, do you remember the T-shirt that Jason Giambi used to wear during batting practice in Oakland before the media was let in? And this was right on the verge of not everybody had a phone in their a camera in their pocket. So Giambi would go and take BP wearing a T-shirt that said "Hit like an all-star, party like a rock star, fuck like a porn star."
There was Jason Giambi was. I hate that some of my memories of Giambi are about being on the stand talking about steroids, because what he was. The way the kind of behemoth that he was in the Bay Area with those teams that obviously should have beaten the Yankees and yet never did in the playoffs. I mean, that's some horrible memories there, being up 2-0 and losing to them. Giambi was he was an animal in all the right ways. If you love baseball, yes. And that and by the way, we should each own that shirt. The fact that we don't is ridiculous. That is
well, I know what I'm getting you.
Yes, please.
I'm going to get you for the next holidays for sure.
Allie will love me. That'll be my bedtime shirt with Allie for sure.
Speaking of Allie, where did you guys meet?
We met. I like to say we met at a coffee shop, but we realistically met through. We met online. We did meet online, and I love happenstance meetings much more in life. They're very romantic. But we met and went to a coffee shop, and it was I will say it was sort of electric immediately.
There you go.
It's one of yes.
You didn't meet her at a Hooters.
No, and you and I have a lot of experience. I call it experience. We've had a lot of broadcasts at Hooters. I'll say that much. Okay, we've had a lot of broadcasts.
We've done shows at Hooters. Yes, we have. I have gone on behalf of the Guardsmen looking for women to sell raffle tickets. We recruited half the what was it, the Pier 38, the Fisherman's Wharf Hooters is where we used to go for pretty girls who would help my charity sell raffle tickets. My friend Nima and I went in there. We got some volunteers. We got some numbers. We got some wings. It was great. I only bring this up, and I don't want to associate Allie with Hooters in any way, shape, or form. But there might be no career opportunities anywhere for anyone. The fry cook, the bouncy waitress. No, the news today is that Hooters is filing for bankruptcy soon. Is the restaurant, Sam Betesh, about to die? Will we have restaurant culture in America? Is there a place for restaurant culture in America in 2025? Or is it all one awkward Office episode and it needed to go away anyways? The Tilted Kilt used to offer franchising opportunities in the back of every single, U.S. Air magazine. I haven't seen a Tilted Kilt yet. So I don't know if that ever happened.
There's still one in Southern California here, the Tilted Kilt. But in regards to Hooters, I will say, I think, yes, that we have gone to a point where perhaps, I mean, is this degrading? Is this derogatory to women in any way? It's more to me the idea of even sports bar. I have this question for you. Are sports bars, because of what you can get now in regards to not just cable, but streaming television, the way you can now access every single game that you would like? I know, because you and I used to go to sports bars because I could not watch a Flyers game anywhere but at a sports bar. And Hooters was very much that. It was the perfect.
You had the satellite that I don't have. You have the package that I don't have. So I'll be here to watch that. And I like wings. And the
chicks are hot. Like that makes perfect sense. It's a perfect combination. Wings and beautiful women and sports on TV that I cannot access. That's a great combination. I can't, obviously none of us are there for the food was not the thing. And so I just think maybe it's more of a sign of that. The fact that people can now get what they want. And even frankly, even when it comes to women. You're meeting women. And you asked me, what was my question? How do I so men aren't meeting women at Hooters anymore. They don't need, right? You can now meet women online. I think it's
a lot
sign.
better to say I met my wife online than I met
at
my
Hooters?
wife at Hooters.
And that I will simply end it with that. You have made my point. You have made my point. That is it. That is it.
Here's, to me, one of the things that's bringing it down as well, and this is bad news for the restaurant industry. I was reading something about this, and the point was, it wasn't about this. It was about something else. But basically, the gist of the paragraph that I was reading is, so you have your father, and your father has his father. That's your grandfather. You have a great grandfather. And that's really where your family lineage ends. But the truth is, your family lineage goes back to caveman dwellers. We all came from somewhere. There were hundreds of Beteshes before we got to Sam Betesh. There were hundreds of Bruces before we got to Damon Bruce. And if you added every single naked women that everyone in our family's line going back to the caveman, we will see more naked women online by noon today. There is no element of needing go to be titillated anywhere. There is titillation. It's ever present. You will see more naked women by sundown tonight than every living member of your family had ever seen, including women with mirrors.
Yes. The camming career and the OnlyFans, et cetera, right? You're absolutely right. Just at our fingertips now. It is not, you don't need to drive. And first of all, none of us even drive anywhere to get anything anymore. Uber, right? I mean, Uber Eats, Instacart, we want everything immediate. We want to plug our car in instead of going to a gas station, right? I mean, everything should be right here within a 100-foot radius of where I'm sitting on my couch. And therefore, I think you make a great point.
It was Ronnie Chang, the comedian. He's like, Amazon Prime's not enough. He's like, I need Amazon now. I want to push a button and it's in my hand now. Put it in my hand, right? Amazon now. Just boom, right there. By the way, to let you know also that we weren't going there just for the wings. And I like the wings. I like the breaded wing. I like the wing, but there is no only wings popping up online.
True. I could use that.
Only wings.
I could use that. I could use, I might spend some time with only wings.
You spent a lot of time watching the All-Star game, and you have the only original thought I have heard on it all. I don't think anybody wants to hear that much more about the NBA All-Star game. It was easy to beat up. It was low-hanging fruit. I didn't like it. I don't think it's very salvageable. But Sam, you're coming at the NBA All-Star game from a different angle. What is it?
I haven't heard anyone say that they liked it at all. I have not heard anybody say that they enjoyed the NBA All-Star weekend. And I will say that NBA Saturday night for the All-Star game is still, for my money, the most enjoyable All-Star collection when you look at all of the major sports. What happens on that Saturday night is still memorable, impactful, and interesting. What Mac McClung did on Saturday night, not even an NBA player. So again, you're going to take your shot. He's not in the NBA. Yeah, but you know what he can do? You're having a contest for dunking.
He's a professional dunker.
He is a professional dunker. And I will argue this. For those that say, of course, we want to see our stars making those dunks, right? We want to see that LeBron and Giannis are participating. Wemby, 7-footer. We want to see those players participating. I think it is just as exciting and interesting to see the reaction of those players. An All-Star weekend is supposed to be a departure from what the regular season is. That was me. I felt more like I was hanging out with NBA superstars, watching them all react to what Mac McClung did than I ever do watching a game. I was in the audience with them. When Mac McClung brings a car out and dunks over it in a more impressive way than Blake. I mean, look, when Blake did it, it was obviously revolutionary different. But McClung jumped over the highest part of the car.
Right, didn't jump over the hood.
Not the hood, but the entirety of the cabin, and then almost catches his foot and eats it, but doesn't. Makes that dunk, makes all of his dunks within the first or second attempt. That was so incredibly impressive. I could watch that 1,000 times. I still think that the 3-point, for those that think they could go and shoot 3-pointers, to watch how impressive it is to see Buddy Hield match Steph Curry. And of course, yes, should Steph participate in the event? Yes, I want to see the best 3-point shooters, but you still had an impressive performance there with the 31 out of Buddy Hield. But just the dunk contest alone, which everyone says get rid of, I say no. Just find more people like Mac McClung that care and get NBA superstars to watch them. If Kevin Durant, if Giannis, if Steph, if LeBron are impressed with the dunk, I know it is fucking impressive. That means they're saying,
yeah, they definitely, offer a confirmation. Okay, they're cheering for it. I should cheer for it too.
Yes. And I will argue also the format on Sunday. You can't tell me that the biggest stars in the NBA don't also include Kenny, Shaq, and Charles still. Right? I mean, Kenny, Shaq, and Charles as popular.
To me, they were the worst part of the whole fucking thing. I love them pre and post. In the game, awful.
Perhaps, awful. But the idea that they would choose teams, and the league has proven that a tournament works for this league. You got a tournament now before the playoffs start. Obviously, we know the playoffs are a tournament. So having a tournament of elimination, and of course, Elam ending, I think the NBA should go to Elam ending. First to 40 points. If you could eliminate foul shooting at all at the end of games, you're not telling me that's better for the league. I love the Elam ending, first to 40. That is awesome to watch. And don't give me this, Draymond's upset that players didn't get enough time to be out there playing in the game because they were eliminated. By the way, play better. Beat those teams. None of those teams were that impressively put together. You could have, and I thought watching the Rising Stars go toe to toe with the quote legends was great to see, the way they almost pulled that off. And then even to see Dame close it out at the end, and the Beast Challenge at halftime, Damon. That was the coolest, most memorable thing. If you are 2 years old.
I'm sorry. Okay. I've enjoyed your hot take, but I couldn't disagree with it more. Mr. Beast in person is a reason to go to the bathroom. This guy is terrible at on-spot live entertainment. On YouTube, he's a genius. As the host of a 3-point shooting contest, holy shit, that was awful. It's like, it's literally the equivalent of now an afternoon drive. I have last week's weekend board up. Like this.
Yeah, okay. I will admit that I would rather in that moment, and you give or take however you feel about Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart would have been better playing to the crowd in that moment, but him setting up the challenge, bringing somebody random out of the crowd, having the clear cube of $100,000 sitting there on the court, the idea that you would shoot one, that you had to make one half-court shot before Damian Lillard hits 3. The whole setup was cool. And again, the players look at how Steph reacts to that shot being made the way that it was, then piling into the money on top of him.
There was too much dead time between everything. There was too much Kevin Hart. Like, I would say that the Four Nations thing, everyone involved deserves a raise.
Yes.
The NBA All-Star Weekend, everyone involved deserves to be fired. Like, that was so bad. I love I'm looking for the angle no one else has, but I think you're looking a little too hard here. I thought it was almost unsalvageable. I thought it failed as a vehicle for entertainment, for competition. I thought it failed as a vehicle for interest, other than this is so bad, I just have nothing left to do but complain about it. I mean, and it's not like...
But we are in a generation, Damon, we're in a generation of having a digestible link to everything. McClung jumping over a car or jumping over his friend, spinning around on a scooter while he does that. That is a clickable, shareable moment. What happened at half court against Damian Lillard is a shareable, clickable moment. And all of those games ending with what feels like a walk-off, because when you hit that, when you make it to 40 points, everyone's got that walk-off. I love the idea of eliminating and crowning a champion in a championship in a game that used to not matter who won, and now you actually do have a little bit of a winner. There are little clippable moments out of that. So I think in its entirety is sort of like watching a movie be directed, and maybe there's just too much downtime. I can follow you on that. But in regards to what you get here and there from that, it's cool. It's cool. I'm sorry. I still enjoy Saturday night, and I thought Sunday was more enjoyable than it had been in previous iterations, period.
I mean, if you want the good fruit, sometimes you have to go out on a branch all by yourself to find it. And I appreciate you feeling that way. I would say that Nobody else agrees with you. I mean, find the person who is like, yeah, that All-Star Saturday night. I'm glad I taped it because I'm going to go home and watch it again.
It's still on my DVR, and I have shared it with Levi, and I still love it. I'm the guy.
I will say this, man. The kids felt the passion of that hockey game come through the screen last night. My 3-year-old Ozzy he's like, hockey. We're rooting for the blue. And then I got him going, USA. And he got excited about
That's
that.
what it's about.
And then Canada sends him to bed crying.
That's okay. That's all right. But he knows who Connor McDavid is now. He knows who Connor McDavid is, and that's cool.
He sure does. Sam, it is an absolute pleasure to hang out with you as always. Again, this is like it's like we're doing a show, but it's also like every single phone call we've ever had that people just get to listen in on the party line. I don't feel like we've done a show or a broadcast at all. No. We just talked.
No, we were just lucky enough to actually carve out the time to chat with one another on an ultimate FaceTime for everyone else to witness. I love that.
There it is. We wrap up these shows, though, with what I like to call Today in History. Would you like to find out how much or how little actually happened today?
Please give it to me.
It's not an impressive day in history. Okay. I'll be honest with you. There's some days where I'm like, holy shit, there's an awful lot of stuff here. And then there's other days where I'm like, okay. Well, here we go. Normally we always start with birthdays. Very unimpressive list of birthdays today. It is Kelsey Grammer's birthday. He turned 70, and I'm going to tell you, I loved him in Cheers. I like him in the YouTube video of him falling off that stage that he's famous for. I never watched Frasier. I wasn't a Frasier guy.
Wait a second. How dare you? Because the only thing I was going to say is, for guys like you and me, for radio purists like you and me, thank you for Frasier putting that on the map for people. That defined what radio was to most of our country.
Talk radio. Remember that old sitcom too?
Yes,
Talk radio.
Loved.
It gave us the gift of Andy Dick.
But my grandmother thought I was Roz. When I had to explain that I was a radio producer, the only way to actually have that land for most people in my family was, okay, I'm basically Roz. Oh, okay. Okay.
Today in 1878, sometimes we got to go way back here. Today in 1878, the very first telephone directory in the United States was published. It had only about 50 names in it, and it was for the New Haven Telephone Company in New Haven, Connecticut. Wow.
New Haven
names.
You and I both spent some time in New Haven, Connecticut.
We have.
Gorgeous part of the country.
Once you get there, you say to yourself, how can I get out? But the phone book, I mean, is there anything that has gone more the way of the dodo than the phone book? I remember being in San Francisco. This is like 2010, 2008, and you would still get the sad attempt of the phone book delivery. And there would be a stack of like 20 phone books in the vestibule that everyone was supposed to take with them up to their apartment, and no one was taking them. And then you'd have the stack of phone books for like 3 weeks. And then some property manager was like, I guess we got to put all these in the recycling bin. These are stupid.
And that was the end of it. But I remember how it felt to look up. I remember the yellow pages, right? I mean, I remember ordering pizza out of the yellow pages. That was one of my favorite things to do as a child. But yes, goodbye, good night. And even our own phone books, the idea that we would have the little registers of writing down phone numbers. I found one of those the other day. I mean, that's hilarious now to think that we used to have.
You know what is incredible though? The other day I was asked for, what's your wife's phone number?
Sure. Oh,
I don't know. I don't know what my wife's phone number is. If you told me for $1 million, call your wife on a payphone,
done.
I couldn't do it because I can't just touch her name. I think it's like 488 something.
That's so funny.
That's not getting me there though.
No. It's true. And what's awful is you say that about your wife, and yet I have ex-girlfriends' phone numbers down more than my wife, because I used to actually have to dial those numbers. Whereas, Well, first of all, it's an easy answer, Damon. What is your wife's phone number? It's Jillian in my phone. That's what it is. Yeah,
it's Jillian.
My wife's phone number is Jillian. That's it, because that's how I call her every single time.
Do you remember your first phone number that you grew up with?
It was a I don't, because I believe it was a 415. My first, well, oh yes, when I grew up, 818-716-1042. And it's still, that is, I thank you for everybody, and please prank call my parents right now. That is still, you can still actually,
use that. Oh, see, ours is out of service, I'm guessing at this point, or maybe it's not, but go ahead and try 518-370-2224.
Because you gave it out, because you actually had to give it out.
Yeah. And then, of course, the ultimate movie phone number. 555-5555.
Just because, just to protect prank calling. I always thought that was funny. Like, what are we really protecting? Go ahead and put a number out there. I mean,
right. Big phone about to sue you for giving
exactly.
Today in 1948, the National Association for Stock Car Racing was formed. That is what NASCAR stands for. I wonder how many people don't even know what NASCAR stands for. Today, NASCAR was born. So happy birthday, Kelsey Grammer. Happy birthday, NASCAR. Today in 1985, Bobby Knight threw the chair.
So, you buried the lead. I mean, this is a great day in history. This is, I mean, from a sports standpoint, this is an iconic, I mean, you could argue top coaching moments caught on tape. I mean, Bobby Knight, is that number one? That's your one seed for sure.
It's right up there. I mean, Bobby Knight throwing a chair across the assembly hall court while a Purdue Boilermaker was standing at a free throw line is incredible. The stories that Bobby has told all the years, saying that he wasn't protesting anything going on in the game. He saw an old lady who needed a seat. He was just trying to help her out. Very funny. He would get a lot of laughs on the, Indiana basketball circuit in Indiana. 39 years ago, they're still looking for the actual chair. They found this old storage room in Assembly Hall that underneath these tarps had a rack of those old plastic molded chairs
stacked on top of each other, right? Yeah.
And so they think they've got it in that stack, but they just don't know which one it is. The fact that nobody had a moment of presence saying that, okay, even though this is an embarrassing moment for Bobby and the university and blah, 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 blah. Something historic just happened. Go get that chair, put a serial number on it, authenticate it. This chair is going to be worth. Darren Ravel today said that chair at auction right now would go for more than $100,000 easily. Easily. It is a one of one item. Bobby only threw one chair.
You would bid on that. I know that.
Radio Damon might have been able to bid on that. YouTube Damon, we're not in that ballpark anymore. We're not. Speaking of the world changing, digital media replacing traditional media, it's incredible that Vanna White was able to keep her job, because today in 1997, we got the debut of the all-digital Wheel of Fortune board. It was introduced, and Vanna said, if you think you're just going to make these freaking letters, consonants, and vowels appear without me tapping it, you got another thing coming. She's like, I know it's Say Jack's show, but it's me they're looking at walking across the stage over and over again. So Vanna became a tapper of letters, not a turner of letters, today in 1997.
I'm all for it.
Keep honestly Vanna. Feels like a billion years ago, 1997.
But please keep Vanna. And technology on Wheel of Fortune was well worth it, but please keep Vanna.
Vanna forever. Is Wheel of Fortune, didn't Pat Sajak just wrap it up or something? Do we know?
No, I believe, you know what, you go on.
Now we need to look this up. Now the show's going to go on another 5 minutes because we're down a Pat Sajak rabbit hole.
But that's okay.
Big Dodger fan, by the way.
I know. Yeah. And Kings fan, by the way. I like Kings. He's got a great
MAGA guy. He's a,
yeah, that's true too. All right. So it looks like Wheel of Fortune is still, no. So officially Seacrest. Seacrest in. Yep. That's it.
Explain why Ryan Seacrest is so successful.
I'll only say this much. A great friend of ours, Chris Morales. We love Chris Morales.
I love Chris.
He worked with Ryan for a moment in time, and he only said, I've never been more impressed with somebody's process in the morning to start a day of work than I did when I worked near and around Ryan Seacrest. That what he does to prepare is just unlike anybody else.
But what the fuck does he have to prepare? He's here's a song by Miley Cyrus. Press play. What? It's not like he's got show topics.
I'm just taking Chris's word for it. And
I would say Chris is a radio lifer, man. He's still in it. He's seen a lot of hosts prepare for a lot of shows.
Yes.
So I say Morales can be the judge of that, but I would like to know what the process is. I think the process is handsome as fucking well spoken.
Well, that'll take you somewhere also. So
I wouldn't know. I'm just well spoken.
Yeah.
I didn't check that other box. Anyways, Sammy, you are a breathtakingly handsome man. I thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
Everyone, I cannot urge you to go to Thinking Out Loud fast enough. Hit like and subscribe over there. Please hit like and subscribe to what you watch on the Plus. Sammy, this was so much fun. Let's do it again real soon sometime. Don't you think?
Let's please, anytime. They said it was a dead period in sports, but not for you and me. Never, 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 never.
Thriving like restaurants. That's us.
I love it.
Thank you so much to everyone for watching. Like, subscribe, notify, all those things on the way out the door. Have a great weekend. And please do remember that sports don't build character. They reveal it. And like that, they're gone.